Former Jewish Hospital, Jure Đaković Street, 21. Modern diagnostic and therapeutic techniques, devices, equipment, and skilled staff made this hospital the most modern health institution of that time in Yugoslavia and the only Jewish hospital in the country. The Jewish hospital was founded in 1923, but it moved in 1936 to the building in the current Jure Đaković Street. Poor Jews were treated free of charge, and those with limited funds paid only a couple of dinars a day. The hospital's income consisted largely of donations. It was open to everyone and not only for Jews. There were 4 operating rooms. The hospital had an X-ray, a cardiograph, a modern laboratory and central heating. At almost every step there was a bathroom. All the rooms were soundproofed, each with a terrace or a loggia. After the Second World War, this was a state-run maternity hospital, and today it is the School of Economics. Rental house of József Ungár, Jure Đaković Street, 10. The one-story house of landowner József Ungár was built in 1910, and it was designed by local architects Titus Mačković and Mátyás Salga. In the years he built his suburban house, József Ungár was one of the largest landowners in the country. His estate spanned 1,710 cadastral yards, mostly under arable land, while smaller areas were meadows, forests, gardens. The Ungár rental house was built with stylish features of the Wiener Secession. This building was one of his last works. In the whole building there were 2 luxurious 5-room apartments, one on the ground floor and one on the first floor. The originality of the facade is achieved by a rounded corner of this rental house. House of Shimon Dominus, Corso 11. Shimon Dominus's parents were immigrants who immigrated to Subotica. Like many other Jewish families, after obtaining most of the civil rights for Jews in the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, they sought a better environment for business and advancement in the second half of the 19th century. That is how Simon's father, Eda, a goldsmith by profession, left his native town Mako and ended up in Subotica. The facade of this house, of harmonious proportions, stands out with its simplicity. The symmetry of the facade is consistently implemented with a centrally placed entrance gate and a balcony on the first floor. The facade is dominated by Baroque and Rococo ornaments. In addition to the owner's law office, before the First World War, this house was home to Béla Strasser's manufactory and fashion goods store and the famous Ferenc Bitsch photographic studio. Dominus died on March 16, 1929, and his house is an immovable cultural property. Rental Palace of Josef Raff, Vladimir Nazor Street 6 to 8. The neo-eclectic 2-story rental palace was built for the candy factory owner Josef Ruff in 1929, according to the plans of the architect Gyula Valia. The factory worked until 1942, when the Hungarian authorities suspended the delivery of sugar. During 1948, the Yugoslav authorities stripped Ruff of ownership of the factory and created today's Pioneer Candy and Sweets Factory. Ruff's rental palace has 10 shops on the ground floor, 2, 3 and 4-bedroom apartments on the first and second floors. The family house of Vilmos Tausig, Maxima Gorky Street 21. On this plot of land in the 18th century there was a dry mill, which was demolished by the time of the cadastral survey of the city in 1878. At that time there was a house on the plot with the longer side facing Veseliny Street, while in the yard there was another elongated building. According to the projects of the construction contractor János Molzer, today's house was built in 1882 for the merchant Vilmos Tausig. The house had all the stylistic forms of eclecticism. The present appearance of the house was given in 1907 after the adaptation and extension according to the projects of Dezső Jakab and Marcel Komor, then already prominent Budapest architects, who also expressed their work in the Subotica area. This building speaks of the character of the entire Brace Radice Street, in which similar ground-floor civic houses are concentrated. Vilmos Tausig's house has not changed its appearance since the beginning of the 20th century, and it seems that its facade has not been repaired. Family house of Mihály Gerév, Maxim Gorky Street 22. At the end of the 18th century there was a civic house on this plot of land. The first data on today's building date from the end of the 19th century, when its owner was the lawyer Mihály Gerév, 1864-1936. During the renovation, the facade of the house received a luxurious neo-Baroque decoration. The corner of the house was rounded and sewerage was built. A separate space with a toilet has been formed for the law office. A particularly beautiful masterpiece is represented by a massive front door with decorative details made of wrought iron. Since 1996, the building has housed a permanent exhibition of donations from Dr. Vinko Percic. Rental house of Lajos Fazekas, Maxima Gorkok Street 13. The two-story rental house of Lajos Fazekas, built on this plot of land in 1899, represents a turning point in the development of Subotica's architecture. On the ground floor of the building, towards Damjany Street, there were 5 shops, and towards Bajza Street, a 3-bedroom apartment. All that remained was a decorative detail under the corner bay window, on which the initials of Lajos Fazekas still stand today. Subotica Synagogue, Subotica, Trg Synagoge 2, Subotica. The gorgeous building of the Subotica Synagogue dates from 1902. It was the work of Budapest architects Dezső Jakab and Marcel Komor. In addition to its indisputable artistic and aesthetic value, it is exceptional because it is the only synagogue in Europe which contains elements of the Hungarian Art Nouveau. Typical of this style, floral decoration in the form of a peacock feather, tulips, stylized roses or lilies are represented on the facade as well as in the interior on stained glass windows and painted walls. The interior, designed like a tent, evokes the Old Testament times, and the bright harmony of colors stirs feelings of joy. Another aspect of Subotica Synagogue should be emphasized: its avant-garde construction, the harmony between its construction and decoration, and the intertwining of its function and form. In the decades following the Second World War, a small number of surviving Jews in Subotica were not able to maintain the synagogue, and in 1979 they presented the building to the city on the condition that it should be restored and used for cultural purposes. Eventually, the stunning Subotica Synagogue has been completely restored and is again ready to welcome visitors. Apart from being used for religious services for high Jewish holidays, it will also serve as a concert venue, and it will be open for tourist visits. Miksa Demeter's apartment rental building, Trg Synagogue 3. The Art Nouveau house of a physician and an entrepreneur, Miksa Demeter, was built in 1906 after the design of the Budapest architects József and László Vágó. Dr. Miksa Demeter, 1864–1944, graduated medicine in Budapest in 1894. In Subotica, he first worked as an insurance company doctor. He was the first one in the city who used the serum in the treatment of diphtheria. In the basement of the house, there was an apartment for a janitor, auxiliary rooms and a warehouse. In the eastern part of the ground floor, there were 2 shops, and behind them a printing house connected with a 1-bedroom apartment facing the inner yard. In the period between the 2 world wars, Ferenc Fenyves lived in this house, the editor of Bács megyei Napló newspaper. This was also home of the well-known painter Klára Fenyves, born Gerét.